So you want a paid-for place to live. You want a paid-for property. And that's getting more and more difficult to come by nowadays because, like everything else, prices keep going up. Here where I am, my property value has essentially, it's actually over doubled since the last tax assessment. And my property taxes went up with it. The value of this house was $133,000 when I first bought it. And I put some work into it, but it's not just my house. They raised the prices up on it. It's everyone else's houses also in the county. Now, the property value is supposed to be $260-something thousand. So I went from $133,000 to $260-something thousand according to the property assessment. And when I went and asked about this, they said that it's because people from out of state are moving here and buying property and paying these huge prices for these properties here in this county. So the property values must be worth it because people's paying that much for it. So they went ahead and raised the assessment up, and in the process also raised the taxes up. So now I have to pay more every year in property taxes. And that is one of the reasons that a lot of the rural property is getting more and more expensive. It's because of the influx. It's slowed down now, but for a couple of years there, the influx of people coming from California, New York, New Jersey, different places, and they were buying these properties sight unseen. They would see the listing, they would call up the realtor and buy these properties for double the amount that it's actually worth. So they use that excuse to raise so-called property values. Now we have, the realtors, the greedy realtors are also trying to make more commission because they get a 6% commission for every sale. So if they raise the price up from $150,000 to $250,000, they can double the commissions. So that's one of the reasons that you can hardly find any property now that's cheap enough to actually buy. And if you buy a property with a house already on it, the price is going to be even more. It used to be in this area. I remember when I was a teenager, in my early 20s also, that you could buy an acre of land here, good land, $4,000 an acre. Then it went up to $5,000 an acre. Now, if you find any decent land at all, besides, a hillside mountain that you can't even stand on without falling off of it, you'll pay $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 an acre, which is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely, totally ridiculous. And you'll pay more if you buy that through a realtor's listing. If you go to, Land Watch, if you go to realtor.com and look up these properties, you'll pay more for that because these greedy realtors has talked these owners into jacking the price up, telling these people, well, we'll just jack the price up, and people from out of state will come and buy this, and you'll make a huge profit off of this. So they talk the property owner, the seller, into listing those properties for way far more than what they're actually worth. So it's getting more and more difficult to find an actual property that you can actually afford. So what can you actually do to have a paid-for property, especially, if you're poor, you can't afford to, you don't want to go in debt. You don't want a huge mortgage you'll never get paid off. You want something that you can get paid off, in a few years, or that you can actually pay cash for. And like I said, it's extremely difficult to do that now. But you can, if you search and you look, and don't limit yourself to the county you're in. You may have to go to, surrounding county. You don't want to go too far away from your family in most cases. But sometimes, where you are, something might not come up for a long time. But if you expand your area that you're searching through and trying to find a property in to, surrounding counties, then you've got a much more chance of actually finding a decent property at a decent price. You can find some properties that has, a home on it that is pretty much falling in. No one wants. You have to take that down, burn that, clean that up, and put something else on their property. You can find those sometimes fairly cheap, but they already have. The good thing about it is when you find a property like that, you want to check everything out, but usually, they will have a good septic tank. They already have electricity ran to that. They already have a clearing for your yard and things, so it's easier to get started that way. The property I bought in 2012, it had an old trailer on that, and I took that trailer down, and actually hard 3 people to come, paid those people $500, and it took them a week to get it cleared up and taken down. They did it by hand, actually. They said it was the worst job they ever had, and said they would have never taken it if they knew it had been that much work. I knew it was going to be. That's why I paid them $500 to do it. Actually, the job was worth probably $2,500 to do it, but they agreed to do it for $500. And they did a good job, but it was a lot of work. And that old trailer on that property was a smaller trailer. It's like a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom type trailer deal. And it was horrible. I mean, it was falling in. It was complete. There was no saving that thing whatsoever at all. So I had that taken out of there, and I bought, a FEMA trailer, one of the FEMA trailers they had. I lived in camper trailers before on another property, actually on a 2-acre property, and this other property was over 5 acres I'd bought. And so I already knew about, camper trailer living, travel trailer living. I actually wrote a book about it. You can go to Amazon and put MD Creekmore in the search bar and come up with that book. Dirt Cheap Survival Retreats is the name of the book. It talks about my first travel trailer homestead. But this was actually my second one. And like I said, we cleaned that property up, and I bought a FEMA trailer that was $4,500, and it was new. I mean, it was perfect condition, mint condition, and it was really, really good shape, actually. So after they got it cleaned up, the old trailer was cleaned off, I had my brother come with his pickup, actually. He had a V8 pickup truck, and he pulled that trailer up there for me, and we set that up, and I hooked into the electricity, I hooked into the septic system, and that camper trailer right there on their property. So everything was already set up, and I gave $18,000 for the property when I first bought that, and I bought it through the bank because the bank had actually foreclosed on that property. So $18,000 for the property and $4,500, maybe it's $4,600. It's 40 something. I think it's 45 or 46 I paid for the camper. Like I said, it was 2012. So I pulled it up there, moved it up there, and hooked into the electricity, the septic, and I was set up. And I lived there for about a year as I was still working, and working online actually at the time. And I was saving because I didn't spend a lot of money. I'd already saved $18,000 up, and paid cash for the property, paid cash for the travel trailer, the camper trailer, the FEMA trailer. I moved it up there, and I was living in that. And I saved for about a year, and I saved another about $30,000. And I'd saved up $20-something thousand. And I'd saved up, and then I went and bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom mobile home and moved up there for, more living space. So you can do it that way. If you can find a property that most people would not want to buy because it's going to be too much work to set everything up, then, you can find decent prices. And these prices is listed on sites like Realtor. That's even listed, if you go to the bank and check on, foreclosed properties, they will ask more of a price than what they'll actually take. On the property I was looking at that I actually bought, they asked me, the bank said $24,000 for that property. And I said, I'll give you $18,000 for that property. He said no. So I said, alrighty. And I left. And about 3 days later, the bank president called me and said, if you still want that property for $18,000, come up here and sign the paperwork. I said, okay. So I went and signed the paperwork, and I bought that property. So don't always assume that those prices are fixed. If you see a price on Realtor, if you see a price on Land Watch or wherever, those prices are not fixed. They price it really high, hoping some idiot to come along and pay that price. Don't lowball it. If you see a property listed for $100,000, for example, you come in and you make an offer of $50,000, at least half of what it's listed for, and see what they come back with. Most will come back with something like $75,000. Those prices, they're trying to get someone to come and buy that, hopefully, impulsively, and pay that huge price for that property. Don't do it. Offer about half and see what the comeback offer actually is, the counter offer actually is. You can also find property with no infrastructure on it at all. If you find one like I was talking about that already has an old home on it or has had one, for example, they might have had a mobile home and someone lost the property and moved the mobile home off the property, and you may still have the septic and electricity and stuff already set up. or it may be something, like I said, that's falling in, you have to take down and put something else in. If you can find that, you can get that pretty cheap usually, and that's the best way to go because it saves a lot of time and effort. But if you can't do that, and you're willing to put in extra work, you can find a property cheaply that is completely off the grid, that has no water access as far as, water from the city, no electricity access, what I call in my book junk land. It's mountain land, find a level spot, put your camper on that. It's not ideal for everyone, but some things aren't ideal. Some things you have to accept to have a home right then, to save living in your vehicle or living in a tent somewhere. You can actually still have a travel trailer set up. You can dig in your own septic, have your own solar, have your own generators, and be completely off the grid, which is what I did with my first travel trailer I lived in. Here's the book that I actually wrote about that. You can see right here, Dirt Cheap Survival Retreat, One Man Solution. This is actually the FEMA trailer right here that I was talking about. This is the second travel trailer homestead that I had on that second property. The book is actually about the first property. And there's the first travel trailer that I lived in there. But I put this photograph on there because it's a better photograph than it's the one I had, and I said this might make the book more interesting and sell more copies with a better cover, because the first cover I had wasn't really all that great. And this book was actually published by Paladin Press when it was first published. There's actually another book, Travel Trailer Homesteading, under $5,000. This is an older book. Some of it's dated now because this book was written, I forget what date it was now, probably 20 years ago. So some of the information in this is dated now, but it's still worth having. So those two books are great if you want to set up your own travel trailer homestead, off the grid, solar, your own battery power banks, your own solar panels, bring in your own rainwater catchment systems and put in place. You can find land like that pretty cheaply, actually, if it's completely off the grid, and there's no power lines running by, no water lines running by. You put in all that on your own. You can find land like that pretty cheaply. You can buy a camper, an old used camper, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Put a small propane heater on the wall for keep it warm in the wintertime. You can put like this roof up here. You probably can't see it through this, but this is a large carport here, and you can pull your camper trailer under something like this, and it keeps the rain off the top of it and all the snow and things, because they have the air conditionings on the top, so they have a lot of stuff on the top. So after a while, especially if they're moved around a lot, they will start leaking. So you have to keep fixing that. But if you have something like this, a large carport, it's supposed to have room for 2 cars, for example, or 2 trucks. You can move your camper under that, and you've got a instant roof on your camper trailer, on your travel trailer, and you have a instant porch you can set under, keep out the sun and things, and store things under like that in front of your property. So that's another way to go. You can also get something like this building back here, and this building is fully insulated. You could convert this into a house pretty quickly, actually. So something like this, insulate that, put in some sheetrock on the walls, put in a bathroom, a small shower, kitchen sinks, kitchen cabinets. You got a home. Fix some solar panels to it, some gravity-fed water system. Put your water catchment system, your water storage tanks up on the hill, and let your lines run down so you have gravity-fed water inside, your house or your travel trailer. It can be done. It can be done pretty cheaply, but you have to put in the work, and you can't always find, and you very seldom can find, a home now that has a house on it that's move-in ready, has utilities for a decent price. You will pay double what it's actually worth because they've raised these prices up, like I said. But if you still see something like that you want, and it's priced fairly cheaply, then maybe you can put in an offer for half what the listing price is and see what they come back with. But usually, right now, these realtors have talked the property owners into keeping those prices high because they want their commissions. And the county has raised the prices up. They have here, and they have other places also that I've heard people talk about, to get more tax dollars, which is extortion, mafia level type stuff in my opinion. You buy a property and they can just jack the price up anytime they want to, and then jack your property taxes up. You have to pay more property taxes. It really, truly sucks. But you can have a paid for property fairly cheaply still yet, but you have to make some sacrifices. You're not going to have a huge house, nice home, unless you pay for it dearly. You can have a camper. You can set it up on a property. You can live in that while you save, work and save to buy something larger if you need it. You can have a building like this set up on your property. It also works great. You can do this and live in it permanently. You can save until you get the money like I did to buy, something bigger. Like I said, I started out with that FEMA trailer. You can see here the FEMA trailer on this property. I lived there for about a year. Then I moved in regular mobile home. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom mobile home. Had a lot more space, a lot better insulation, and a lot more comfortable. You can do that also. So this book, Amazon.com, search for Creekmore, or go up here to this QR code and scan that, and go to Amazon and find that book if you want to buy that. I appreciate it. It might help. Hopefully it does. Anyways, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully.